What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today's Soulcalibur VI. If you've ever been a fan of hardcore fighting games, you've probably enjoyed the heck out of the last couple years. It seems like every few months we're getting another giant, epic masterpiece of a fighting game. I mean, look at the fact that we're getting Injustice 2, the new Tekken, and now in a couple of months we're even getting something that's completely different like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It seems like developers are finally taking this genre incredibly seriously and giving us tons of selection of different ways to play, places to play, and great online options. And Soulcalibur VI is right there to try and fit in with the rest of the bunch. I'm going to say up front that this game is nearly perfect. It does so many small changes that overall alter the flow of combat to be better than it has ever been. But there are still some flaws when it comes to the DLC and the story. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's begin by just talking about the raw combat, because this is really what's cool here. I mean, part of the reason that people really love this franchise is the fact that it is a weapon fighter. Now, these games are dramatically different than something else like a typical hand-to-hand brawler, simply because the way your character fights completely depends on what they're carrying. Just as an example, let's take a look at Keelik. A lot of people consider this guy the main character of the story itself, and he obviously uses a giant bow staff. This allows him to do horizontal and vertical strikes, but also have a very strong range. He's able to try and basically dictate how far or how close an enemy should be in order for him to do good combos. In every single match, obviously the point is to try and bash your enemy's brains out until they have 0 health, but there's an extra added option, which is getting a ring out, taking them over to the edge of the course and just kicking them off. During the course of just an average match though, you're going to quickly realize that something feels slightly different in Soulcalibur VI. You see, in previous entries, something I do think was a pretty big flaw was that some of the Soulcalibur games allowed block spam, which is where, by basically sitting in the corner and constantly perfectly dodging every single hit, you could just tap, dodge, and block over and over again and just punch whenever there was an opening. And this became extremely aggravating because there were people who could practically flawless you simply because they were more defensive than you are. Well, finally we have a way to counter that, which is with the new reversal edge system. This allows you at any time to basically do a giant unblockable strike. It takes about a full second to actually launch it, but if you connect, time slows down and you basically have this quick little duel where each of you chooses high, low, or kick attack, and once you do that, it's sort of like a rock, paper, scissors system. And I think that this is really smart because it makes it where it's funny because people just by default now don't block as much. It's sort of that thing of once you try and cure a problem, the problem doesn't come up as much. People are actually being a lot more open to rushing you, trying to attack, or get that next big combo. Something that really struck me about this is that the entire balancing is already so incredibly deep. I mean, there are so many characters in this game with such a massive roster. I expected to see at least one fighter who was way overpowered, and was very noticeably so, but from what I can tell, it seems like each person, from Maxi to the new people like Geralt, everybody works in perfect conjunction, which is really amazing since they all fight so dramatically differently. I mean, the fact that we're seeing such a great combination of different fighting styles all going toe-to-toe without any obvious misbalance is incredible. I did think that there was something a little bit weird when I got into the online play, where everybody was fighting extremely well, but there was something that was a little bit odd, which is the custom characters. So every single Soulcalibur typically has some sort of character customization, allowing you to make your own characters and then basically choose how you want them to fight. Since this is a weapon fighter, basically you choose their clothes, their height, and then what blade they're going to carry to dictate how they're going to fight. And here's the thing, in online play, you still can actually use your custom character. Not all the time, but in certain modes it is allowed. And this is actually the one thing that I think is really, really tough, because when you get thrown into a ring with a guy who looks like this, well, you have no idea how he's going to fight. I mean, it's just a tall dude who's basically basically naked with a stick, what are you gonna do? Or if suddenly you just find yourself dropping into an arena and you're facing down Bowsette. I mean, how are they going to fight? How do you try and counter that? It's something that makes it where you really have to try and adapt. You can't just try and learn to fight against specific characters, because you're gonna sometimes just be thrown against these people, and when this happens, you really don't know what to expect. So let's talk about the plot, because this is something that I think is a little bit peculiar. I really wish they had done more with this. In general, the Soulcalibur series has actually done some really interesting stuff with its writing in the past, because I think that it has a lot of potential. The idea that there's this cursed sword that's just been getting carried along practically against its will throughout history is really, really fascinating. But here, it seems like maybe they ran out of budget. There are essentially two different types of story mode in this. The first one is Soul Chronicle. Now, this is a more straightforward tale. It follows the legendary rise and fall of the cursed blade itself, Soul Edge. You see every person, and you can play the entire thing start to finish as one 2-hour-long movie, or if you want instead, you can actually play individual characters. It basically shows a really short cutscene or has like a text screen, and then you do a fight, and then you see another text screen and another fight. But here's my issue: almost everything is just spelled out in these comic book style static images, where it's just a cool drawing and a couple words pop up and then you go to the next fight. And it's really disappointing to me, because I really wish we saw just a little bit more animation or something in there that more properly conveyed the fact that this is a story that's so deep and heartfelt and really kind of tragic in an interesting way. The people who carry Soul Edge often are the victims of it. People who are mentally ill, or those who are just slightly corrupted and end up finding the blade and have their hearts turn dark forever. I think that's really, really awesome. So I really wish we'd seen just the slightest bit more budget put into seeing actual cutscenes in this, other than just at the start and the finish. The other mode is one that I think is even more fun, but one that has even less cutscenes somehow, which is Libra of Souls. Now, this one is a lot more like just a standard RPG, in that it has lots of talking, lots of equipment to buy, and actually a sort of interesting leveling system. So Libra of Soul is very different from Soul Chronicle, because in Soul Chronicle, you're playing through the official story of Soulcalibur VI, so therefore, obviously you're playing as the official characters. In Libra of Soul, you're playing as a custom character, which you get to craft however you want. As I went through this, I actually completely changed my look around several different times because I was allowed to. Now, what's really the best part about this, in my opinion, is the fact that as you go to different stores, you can purchase different weaponry, and depending on what you carry, it once again completely changes how you fight. So it's kind of awesome when you reach a new town and you're forced to buy a weapon that's dramatically stronger to up your attack, but is in a style you don't normally use. It makes it where, as you go through this and continually fight higher level enemies that are going to have a ton more health, you have to go to a store and save up your money in this and spend it to get a bigger and better blade. I think that's really, really cool. It's overall a very different style of RPG than something you may be used to, but I think it really manages to capture that enjoyment of beating somebody who's higher level than you, and it's a really, really tough fight, and then getting tons and tons of experience points when it's done. For all that this game does correctly, I do think that I have one really big problem with it, which is the fact that it has Day 1 DLC. There is a character in this that is very annoying to me, because you actually fight her from time to time. She'll just pop up in arcade mode or in just random matches, but you can't actually access her unless you pay additional money. I'm so annoyed by the idea of Day 1 DLC, because it seems like this is something that was done, balanced, and ready to go, but now they locked it out on the disc. I do want to say that if you're worried about this breaking the balance, it's hard to say. It doesn't seem like she's a particularly overpowered character, even in online matches. I played this game online a ton, just because I think that's one of the most interesting aspects of fighting games, and surprisingly, I barely lost at at all. I was dominating people all over the place. And I think it's because, in general, the netcode is surprisingly good. I experienced almost no lag whatsoever, no trouble finding matches, and it seemed like things were very, very well constructed. But this may change in the coming days. Obviously, anytime a big game like this is coming out, you're going to have at least a few server problems. But as it stands now, playing it the day before launch and on launch day, it seems like this is quite a seamless experience. Overall, I have to say that I'm impressed by what Soulcalibur VI actually is. It could have gone in a lot of different directions, but I think that kind of reinventing the classic love and vibe of this series was the smartest choice. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go over the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Soulcalibur VI an 8.5 out of 10. If you're somebody who's open-minded and looking to try and experiment with the fighting genre, I actually highly suggest you grab this game. It's very easy to learn in general, and I think that actually being able to go through the RPG mode first can teach you a lot about different styles of fighting before you jump into those really tough online matches. Thanks so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Oh, hey, I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.